Okay, so the port forwards, you simply click on the port forwards in your toolbox and your port forwards load up. Now the filter by, the idea of the filter by is that you can filter by to only see certain aliases. This is still a work in progress and doesn't currently feature yet, so we'll just skip over that. But the next thing is aliases. Aliases are a really important concept to understand. So you can see in this rule here, for example, we're redirecting it to camera 03. And the idea is that if you have a destination that you're going to reuse a lot, like say for example the IP addresses of your HQ or the IP address of camera 3, and you want to use it a number of times, then you can create an alias. So to create an alias, you simply click on the alias button, and you'll see currently listed here all the currently connected aliases. So I've set up the alias for each of the cameras. You can create a new one here. When you create them, you get the option to make it for this device only or company wide. What that basically means is if you create a company wide alias, it means as you configure any other devices on your account, you will have access to that alias. So for example, if you set up your company HQ static IP and you set up as a company wide alias, you'll have access to it on every device on your account. If you only want to have access to that alias on this device, use this device only. So if you pick camera 2 for example, you see it load here. See it's device only. It gives the IP address of it. We can remove it by clicking on this and add in a new one. So that's aliases. It's very simple, very straightforward, but it's very handy to use. The wizard here is still a work in progress. That's intended to allow you to kind of quickly set up for certain arcs, similar to the iSpy. The next one is to add rule. So add rule allows you to set up a rule. So what I'll do is instead of adding the rule, adding the rule is the same as editing. So if I click on that rule, I get the edit, disable, cancel or delete. These are all obvious. So I click edit and it brings up the rule set for it. So description is basically something you want to call it. Anything you want. It's just something that would make sense to you. The next is from who. Who is connecting to this? Is it a connection going to be allowed in from anywhere, from anybody, or do you want to geolock it to any of these countries? And then any of your aliases will also be listed here. So we don't have say Office HQ created here, but if we did, we'd be able to select it. If you can have 3 from who, so you can pick, for example, say allowed it from Ireland, allowed it from the United Kingdom, and allow it from the United States, and that will geofence. This connection can only come from those 3 areas, or you can set it to any and set that back. Protocols, TCP, UDP, or both, whichever you need. The next is what interfaces are we doing the port forward on? Which one does it come in on? So the most obvious one is the public IP on NetCell, but you may want to replicate it to the WAN interface. If there's an existing static IP on that WAN interface, you can add it to that as well. Ports. So we've decided to redirect externally 8002 and 603, and they're being redirected to 8000 and 554. This is just important here, so you can see the way it's comma separated, so you can have 2 ports. You can add in more if you wanted. The only thing you got to remember is whatever you add in here, so there's 4 of them added here, then there's got to be 4 down here. So let's say 554, and let's pretend this last one is 779 on the internal. These values don't have to be the same here, just the quantity has to be equal. So you can go with just a singular, say port 80 to port 80. That's a singular entry. You can go with a range, so you could go say 80 to 100. Or if you wanted to do all the web ones, say 80-443-80x0, and you could do the same here. Again, these ones don't have to be exactly the same value, so maybe on the outside you'll change that to 83, that to 83, but on the inside it'll still be 80 and 80, 80, 80. This one here, so redirecting to, it's what target on the inside. Now remember I set up an alias for my cameras, so I can pick any of my aliases. The aliases are, by selecting that, you get the drop down of your aliases. If you want to simply write in an IP address, you can just put in an IP address that way. And if you want to switch back to your aliases, switch back to your aliases. And that's it. Click Save. Outbound NAT, that's very rarely required. There's only certain use cases that use it. And what it does is, instead of having your connection being seen by the end viewer as coming from the public internet, it sees it as coming from the local network. There are some NVRs and cameras out there that don't permit WAN access unless explicitly allowed. So that can be handy for initially just getting yourself access until you enable WAN access. So just on the list, you can see the list of all the port forwards set up on this one. These are all just sample ones. So you've got green ticked meaning it's enabled. From any, if we change this to give it a geolock, there you can see the geolock, and you can see the ports on either side of the device and the IP. So it's very neat because you can stack up loads of ports and have up to 3 basically aliases or geofences. So you can have very neat port forward rules. Basically one rule can set up like all the ports for an entire device if needs be. So it's very straightforward, very simple. Once you've made all your port forward changes, just remember to send the configuration to the device with the send config option.